From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Napzok.
And I'm Jen Landa.
There we are. Here we are. There we are. There we are. Right in front of us.
And here we are.
Sometimes grammar escapes me. We are here to answer Star Wars questions today. We have taken 2 questions from Blue Sky in celebration of just Blue Sky exploding. It was a social media site that I've been on for about a year and a half. I had one of them fancy invites sent to me, Jen, and I was pretty public in the fact that it just wasn't for me. It was kind of boring. And no one was over there. Well, for reasons, Jen, it's exploded. And here we are, having fun.
Yes, I'm enjoying Blue Sky. It's active. It's thriving. I haven't really done much on there yet, though.
Hey, you don't need to. You don't need to. Yes. So today we're taking 2 questions from Blue Sky. We're talking about classic Star Wars elements in the new films and maybe some new elements, but also looking at CGI versus practical. Great questions. But before we get to all that, as always, we want to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Today, we're going to recommend Shadows of the Sith by Adam Christopher, who I follow on Blue Sky, and I think he followed me back. What a champion. Great book, one of my favorite Star Wars books of recent times. Download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. That's our Audible. Jen, we have our Ask.
That's right. We have a new goal on Patreon to reach 420 paid patrons. We had a previous goal of 415, which we met. We have locked in a live stream. It's going to happen soon-ish when Joseph returns. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out what we're going to do. We don't know yet, but it's going to be private.
Private.
Private. So 420 is what we're looking for, and we're so grateful to all of our current patrons. Patreon really helps keep our show going. We're so grateful. Thank you. And that's all. Yeah, that's all I got.
That's all you got. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah, we locked in that exclusive live stream that we keep saying is private. It's like we've only ForceCenter, but it's over there. We'll get to it. Joseph is gone. He is back home, home being his homeland, so to speak, the great state of Minnesota. He is making a feature film out there, directing, writing, doing pretty much all of it. It's called Dead Media. I hear tell it's going well. So you can continue to support by going to his website, josephscrimshaw.com. There's a link to support as with independent films. As always, budgets are tight, and helping that budget grow, if that's something you're interested in doing, we're recommending you go to Joseph's website and find the links. All right, Jen, are you ready for some questions?
I am.
All right. Like I said, we took a couple from Blue Sky. We're going to stick mostly going forward to our Patreon supporters for taking questions, and sometimes we do it on Patreon. For the most part, we do it on Patreon. Sometimes I admit when I'm getting lazy and I don't want to switch Patreon accounts, it's not difficult. But, you got maybe get a 2-factor authentication text, Jen, all that. Sometimes. So if that's the case, if I'm not feeling it, I go to Discord, where there's a section now called Call for Questions, a.k.a. Ken is lazy today. But we get great questions from our longtime listeners and our new supporters as well. But on Blue Sky, to celebrate the explosion of Blue Sky and ForceCenter's place on it, Daniel Zerlek asks, with the potential of a new trilogy featuring Rey, we talked about this on our news story this week. Jen, you're Jen, that's Rey. We don't know the whole story, but with the potential new trilogy featuring Rey, what other characters and elements from the previous trilogy would make sense emotionally and narratively to transition into a new trilogy? And why? Daniel wants us to show our work. And a bonus question, Jen, what new elements would you like to see? So where do you go for the classics, those characters, maybe some of the elements, some of the thematic stuff from the old? How do you want that to factor into the new, potential new?
So I was like, okay, the sequel trilogy only, that's going to be challenging. Because if Adam Driver was younger, I would have loved to have gotten a Knights of Ren origin story and that whole how that was going on. That would have been really fun. Realistically, I would love Finn. I would love to see more of his character. I think John Boyega is a fantastic actor who could absolutely carry a new trilogy as the lead.
Hmm.
But then I'm like, well, what would I want the story to be about?
Yeah.
Him, developing his force sensitivity skills, his force skills.
Hmm.
Sure, why
Hmm.
not? I don't know.
Or
That's
already
where I
having
start to
it
get stumped.
could be one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Already having it.
Boom. Up
Exactly.
and running.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But truthfully, what I
Mm.
would really love, well, I would love the John Boyega one, but also adjacently, Solo. I
Mm.
really wish they would have continued
Hmm.
that.
Mm.
Kira, Cloud Riders, like we've talked
Right.
about,
Right. Right.
Alden Ehrenreich, Donald Glover as Lando, have that
Yeah.
be its own thing. That to me would have been awesome. But
I
eh,
I love what you're. It's a curveball in the news cycle. I think correctly, we're looking at whatever this Kinberg series the trilogy might be. Again, none of it officially confirmed from Lucasfilm. Let's point that out, as we always like to do. But that it's going forward, that it might involve Rey, and we've heard reports and rumors of her in an Obi-Wan like role, which of course that's a good standby. But what if Kinberg's like, I'm on board. I want 3 pictures, and I'm continuing Solo.
OMG.
Not less than a 1% chance of that being the actual reality, but that would be kind of funny.
Oh.
So yeah, so in terms of characters and elements from the previous trilogy, and Daniel's referring to mostly the sequel trilogy there, but I'm also might bring in some of the classic ideas and thematic things from all the Star Wars. Finn is definitely one. I think we can get to a point, and we all don't know all the stories behind some of John's struggles with Disney Lucasfilm, but he's been pretty honest about the ones he's had. He's been pretty honest, and I think there's some he spoke some hard and needed truths over the last couple of years. I also think you're coming off of 10 years or so of a job. And as much as we all might love Star Wars, as much as they love Star Wars, there's natural to also be like kind of done with that for now. Would like to explore the things. I think Daisy Ridley had that as well, which is why I was pleasantly surprised, I'd say. Shocked. I kind of when I heard some of the rumors percolating and the scoops emerging of might be a Rey film, and that lunch she had where she posted it and was kind of, I was like, there's just I might even been here on ForceCenter. There's no way, at least in the immediate future, that she's coming back, and she's back, so that gives me hope. And if she can get John Boyega excited, I don't know. Oscar Isaac even returning to Disney, the company, to work with Marvel was considered by some to be a bit of a surprise. He'd been relatively outspoken about some of the things that he wanted to have happened. Particularly, he wanted, I hear tell, a relationship between Finn and Poe, and that wasn't going to happen. And so he had a little bit of that. But I would like to do it. But I don't want them to just come back and rehash. But we'll talk about new things we want. But the big theme is generational exchange being so key to Star Wars. When I hear, well, Rey in an Obi-Wan Kenobi-like role, meaning from the original trilogy, that's really one film and 2 blips of scenes in the other films. But that speaks to Jen, a older, wiser Jedi mentor character that has the new generation behind her. I definitely want that. I definitely want that element. We'll talk maybe about some new ways to do it. But that was present in the sequel trilogy. It took a different route for maybe some people's taste, but Luke eventually, as we always say, the third act of Last Jedi, his final moments, Last Jedi, his final big speech in Last Jedi is about, no, the Jedi shouldn't go. We should question. We should find new ways to build, but I'm not the last Jedi. The fight goes on. It is about the next generation coming up behind me. So I definitely want that to be present. And I think there'll be some wrinkles on how to do it, or at least how I'd like them to explore it. But that's the big one for me, carrying that. And then you had said this on the news episode. I think for me, one of the things I love about Rise of Skywalker is it is pulpy. Force Awakens moved very fast. Last Jedi, a film that deconstructs Star Wars and tries to see is there still value in Star Wars, took a different route. It's not as pulpy at times. It's got some pulp to it. Don't be don't mess up my words there. And it's got some great Star Wars fights. The opening, the evacuation of the car is still one of my favorite Star Wars sequences. Rest in peace, my favorite Tali Lintra. But yes. I want some of I definitely want pulp elements from Rise and Force Awakens. Not even necessarily specific things, but whatever this is, I want this to move, dare I say, Jen, faster, more intense.
I agree. I really like the darker elements of The Last Jedi. I like the mysticism that was
Yeah.
presented in The Last Jedi, blending that with faster, more intense of and the pulpiness of
Hmm.
Rise of Skywalker and The Force Awakens. And that to me would feel like the most OT. You know what I mean? That would feel like the
Yeah.
most empire-ish
Hmm.
Star Wars, in my opinion. That's what I
I like
want.
that.
Um, Maybe not quite as pushing the boundaries as The Last Jedi did, just so that people don't freak out. I
Yeah.
have no problem with it.
Yeah.
But, it led to a lot of backlash. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Look,
pulling back
look,
on that.
look, I don't need, I don't, Last Jedi wasn't subtle to me. It wasn't subtle.
No.
It was pretty out in the open, but not to get snarky and I don't like finger wagging around the thing, but like, we're in an era where how people digest media often leaves the point of the media overlooked or not understood. I think that's present in all the films, and I think it's present in just, again, all media. I always joke, every election cycle, some conservative learns that Bruce Springsteen does not agree with them. Every time. Every time. Every time they play Born in the USA and have to be told, oh, that's not what you think it is. That's just kind of how it is. I would like the classic elements to be present, but also just let's make it kind of in your face of what we're telling. And I'm not talking about in terms of political stories even. I think Star Wars is political in any way you look at it. But just in that this is a myth. This is a tale for a next generation of fans on how to live life. And I don't need it to be always beholden to George's 12-year-old rule. It's not even a rule, it's just his philosophy. But just that element, again, I talk about generational change, but here's your journey forward, and here's maybe not how you should do it, but why you should do it in terms of the fight and the journey forward and all that kind of stuff. I'd love that and I think that would be present.
Yeah, right. And really, like the life lessons, which is what George wanted to present in a really fun and exciting mystical
Mm-hmm.
package, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
digestible for people of all ages, because you don't want to come over and hit them over the head like you need to be accepting of whatever. No, it's like a Trojan horse, and you're going to
Yeah.
tell this story, and people are going to learn something from it and walk out of the theater maybe questioning what they believed in, or wow, that was really exciting to see something on screen. I don't know,
Yeah.
exhilarating, right? That feeling
Yeah.
that you get where you just feel like lighter, you feel change when you come out of the movie theater. That is what I want from this next
Mm-hmm.
trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is.
Yeah, and look, one of the big themes, and I know you spoke wonderfully on it back in the day about just the Force Awakens, but I'll say the sequel trilogy in general. It's one of our favorite things to discuss here at Force Center. Longtime listeners know, but Force Awakens being the story of both the new and the current or previous generation dealing with the legacy of what came before, dealing with the fallout, dealing with just being who they are. Whether you're kind of a celebrity, dare I say, like Han and Leia and Luke, and finding what 30 years of being Han, Leia, and Luke did to them, and how you come out from underneath that, how you move forward, and then the next generation. Ray in the Tirfon, yellow Tirfon Aces helmet, or whatever the correct trivia answer is, dreaming about being part of the fight, but in the shadow of the previous war. You are Han Solo, the general, or are you a smuggler? What are you? What's the legacy? That was so present. Darth Vader, I will finish what you started, all that stuff. That was so present there. But now we have a way to do that. And so I'd love to see that, again, with the generational exchange. But now it's different. It's a more modern look at, now we have a lot more history and how it helped and how we hurt and how things got messed up and how things got saved. And what's the story for that new generation? Will be tough. It'll be tough, but it needs to be a film series. Again, we're discussing a potential series that doesn't even exist officially right now. But
Yeah.
if Kimberg takes over, we got that evolves into the Ray trilogy. Dare I say that term? This is kind of, they're playing to a new generation, and that's a wide open plane for me to build from with them.
Who do you think could be the antagonists of
Well,
this new trilogy?
well, Jen, that transitions into Daniel's follow up of,
Oh,
and what new
yeah.
elements would you like to see? The
Okay.
only two elements I put down are, hear me out here. I'm not in a development meeting. I don't have a pitch Bible in front of me. I don't need to have it all thought out here. That the threat comes from within more than without, and then it isn't necessarily based on galactic domination. And this would get political. And this is what I do hope. This is why talking about some comments that Shameen Obed-Chinoy has out there about what her Rey film might be, or more specifically, the new Jedi Order film. You're reforming this Jedi Order. Rey's probably got a new way of looking at it, and Shameen Obed-Chinoy's talked about there's people in the galaxy who don't want that to happen. And that's not necessarily about galactic domination. It's not necessarily about a Sith or dark side user. Could be very much about political organizations. Could be about people in power who are afraid of a group returning to power, or misunderstanding what the return of a Jedi Order could be. So while I think there always needs to be the galactic stakes, if anything, one of the things Solo, there's a lot of reasons Solo maybe has the perception of not working in some ways on paper and budget-wise and gross take for the box office. It didn't work, but it was small. Now it factored in, and Enfys Nest and the hyperfuel is very much about the rebellion. She is the new face of the rebellion at the time. It factors in. I always joke Solo is part of the Skywalker saga too, because it's about the oppression of the galaxy at the time. But it still had it played smaller, which I think is what I like about the film in a lot of ways. But maybe that contributed a little bit to the perception that the film itself was smaller. So I don't want a new series to be all internal and not have galactic stakes, but I want less of I'm going to rule versus people in power who are continuing to try to rule. Which, again, a little bit plays with the prequels and stuff like that in Clone Wars. But you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes. Oh, that's really good. It's really good. And to me, it is more modern storytelling. You don't have this like villain twirling a mustache, right?
Yeah.
The quote unquote antagonists are coming from within. Perhaps they're people that are afraid of change, that don't like this change that Rey is bringing, her new approach that frightens them. They want things to be the way that they've been. Maybe they don't like her opening it up to all different types of people. Maybe not just children who are force sensitive, but now you have teenagers, adults who are force sensitive, right? That's not the way that we've done this. That's not the way that we've done this, right?
Yeah.
So there could be that push and pull. I really, really like that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Huh.
it could be second or third or fourth generation politicians who have a view of what happened during the prequel era that is maybe incorrect, or the story that was told versus the story that happened. Dare I say, they themselves are media illiterate. Where I heard the Jedi were bad. Palpatine said so. It could be that. I don't necessarily just be a quiet political struggle. And I, again, do want galactic stakes, but I like that versus. Because I think even I feel sometimes when, all right, a new Star Wars film, we're pushing ahead in the timeline. Rian Johnson's trilogy back in the day, which not happening, but, was going to be in another part of the story we haven't heard. And I immediately think of, for good reason, who's the new red-bladed villain? And those are fun. Chimera, Acolyte shows up with a different perspective and a different path to darkness. I think that's interesting. I think that would be important. I'm expecting a red blade, I should say.
Yeah, of course.
But it handled in a little bit different fashion.
I don't think we're going to get the red blade at the beginning of the film. I think we're going to see that person fall to the or people, right? Falling to the red blade. And maybe that's how the first movie ends. So then it's like there's your cliffhanger to go into the next one.
Could be.
We've seen that in real life, right?
Yeah,
We've seen that in real life.
And we're playing with these big kind of wide open thematic playbooks here, but that's kind of the point. And then one little smaller note of new element in terms of a Star Wars series, I would like the villain. I think there would be the villain, right? I'm saying that, whether they want galactic domination or just your votes, I don't know. But I would want the villain to be slightly different. I'm looking at a female villain, a non-binary villain, someone that just looks, sounds, and brings a different perspective. Though I think some of the points in Star Wars in the past, the Palpatines and the Dooku's of the world, I think are intentional in Star Wars storytelling.
Yes.
Snoke and everything, I think it all tracks. But you know what I mean? Just going into different territory. and different perspectives for that villains for the villain, and having it be someone like that, at least part of the key villain team.
I love that. And I think that's why I loved Chimere so much, is that
Mm-hmm.
Chimere was appealing. Obviously not just physically, but like there was something about him where you're like, oh, I could see why somebody would fall prey to
Yes.
his lies. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that even with Palpatine in the prequel trilogy, he was very charming. You could see how people would maybe want to believe what he's saying. And so
Mm-hmm.
having a villain like that, rooted in a little bit more realism,
Mm-hmm.
less like Snoke, more charismatic,
Mm.
more charming, more deceitful, I think
Yeah.
would be really, really good. Hiding their intentions and people believing, oh, I think that they do want good for the galaxy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they,
But they
but actually,
don't.
this villain's very selfish and
Yeah.
only cares about rich people.
Yeah. 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 Indeed. Yeah. And it would be just different in a lot of ways, and I think you could find value from that sort of villain's perspective journey. It could challenge in good ways too. I like it, and I like when you kind of understand. Sorry, I'm jumping all around here, Jim, but like it's that classic screenwriting lesson that I think even if you've never written a screenplay, the villain is the hero in their own story. Yep, it's true, and that is always true, and that's. But I like when you push a little forward. I admit, you talk about Acolyte, a series you absolutely loved. I really liked it, and I say really liked because I think there was at times where I didn't like the ways in which Chimere was challenging me, which isn't a bad thing for Chimere to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see that continue to play out, where we got a villain that brings a shared earned experience with a lot of people that turns them. They make the choice to be a villain, and we got to untangle that in this modern era. And you got someone like Rey who has her own journey, who I think, without a doubt, if it's one film or 9, is going to rebuild the Jedi Order, or will have rebuilt it with a different kind of perspective, just little off center from where it had been before, in good ways. In good ways.
Yeah, for the villain, it just reminds me of what George did with the prequel trilogy. He showed the fall of Anakin Skywalker from an empathetic lens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's value in that, in seeing the good side of him and then the terrible side of him, and you kind of don't feel necessarily bad, but boy, he had a really difficult life, and you can see where things went wrong, right?
Yeah.
And I think that could be valuable in this new trilogy, is to show the villain where you do kind of like understand their motivations or why they would make that terrible choice. That to me is a very modern thing that I think could be very useful if you're trying to tell a new type of message or a new type of moral tale.
Yeah. No. I like that, and giving someone else a chance to play the biggest baddie in the galaxy would be fun too. I think. All right, that's my new elements. Any for you? Where you go with this?
I want a Caretakers movie. No,
You just want a Caretakers movie?
I want a documentary, like we talked about. I want a documentary on the Caretakers.
I'm all in.
Notice them in their natural habitat.
All in. All in.
Yeah. No, but now that we've been talking about the villain, it really gets me excited about who this could be and how I want to identify with them and buy all their merch. Because I do sometimes feel a little weird about wearing Darth Vader merch or even like my Stormtrooper stuff. I'm like, I don't know if this sits well with me anymore.
You look, I've told the story here before, but I used to wear that Imperial insignia baseball cap on stage, on shows, everything. And then I got a pretty clear look one day in a coffee shop from someone that made me think, oh, this definitely has changed. It's no longer just a pathway to a Star Wars conversation or the bad guys have cool toys. This is rigging as an endorsement. So I switched to my Rebel Alliance hat, which now is out of print and I can't get anymore. So I don't know what to do because the hat's a little dirty. But yeah, I'm with you. But
we need some new baddies.
Yeah, I think we need some baddies, some new merch, man. I think it's okay. I think putting the big fights in our own real world aside, red and black is a great aesthetic. So if we do that again, great merch will be found.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's all I can think of.
All right.
Boy, I really hope that we get some more leaks from this new trilogy because you know what's going to
I'm
happen.
I was look. In the time that we recorded the news episode this week to even now, I put aside some of the here we go again vibes with the news story. And again, it's always going to be part of the cycle, and some people are going to jump on it as a sign of victory that Lucasfilm's struggling and stumbling and all that stuff. But I'm excited about the potential of some new stuff here. And I want some confirmation soon so we can start really stop the wild speculation and see what's coming for us as Star Wars fans in the next few years. We'll see.
That's
All
right.
right. And that's that question. That's just number one. We got another one. So stick around here for more Star Wars questions. Welcome back to ForceCenter. I'm Ken. That's Jen. We've been joking. That's the Ken and Jen in the mornings. We got sports and weather coming up, Jen.
That's right. Today we got a high of 66.
Yeah. Here's Joseph with the check of traffic.
His eye on the sky.
Eye in the sky. We got another question from Blue Sky. Great username here. Trench Run Luke. Says, hey, Ken and Jennifer. Growing up before CGI, sci-fi was all about props and real locations, which created a tangible connection to the stories. As an adult, I love visiting filming locations and learning about the props. Here in Milton Keynes, we have the UK's Sci-Fi Museum, which is filled with props from iconic franchises like Star Wars, Doctor Who, and Star Trek. One of my favorites is a Rolls-Royce engine part that appeared twice in Star Wars in the Cantina as IG-88's head and once in Blake's 7. It's these little connections that bring my favorite media to life. Visiting filming locations like Cardington Towers, Yavin Base, or just about any quarry, a Doctor Who staple, gives me the same thrill. What do you think? How has CGI changed this connection for you? There's no doubt CGI has made sci-fi more exciting and visually impressive, but I do miss that physical connection to the world. Do you feel the same way? Jen, creature shops, all that kind of stuff's been big in your Star Wars fandom. We are can never... The gray of my face, the gray of my beard will never let me escape the generation of Star Wars fandom that I come from. So, yeah, I definitely understand what Trench Run Luke is talking about here. Where do you go with that?
Oh, 100%. And the thing that I was thinking about, because we've been watching Coraline recently, Nightmare Before Christmas, and really when you're watching those movies, it's playing on two levels, both the story and the actual like artistry that it took to make those films. And knowing that there were practical elements to it makes it feel more incredible as you're watching it. It's like when I went to Cirque du Soleil and I saw these guys on this contraption doing these death-defying stunts. I was like the audience, I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to witness like a terrible accident? And then when they cleared it, when they did it, it was like, whoa, right? And it's the same thing when you're watching movies. You're like, how are they pulling this off? How is Tom Cruise pulling off his stunt? Like there's something so incredible about that.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's all CGI, it kind of takes away from that part of the art. And CGI is amazing, but it just doesn't, it has like a slickness to it. And it has that like uncanny valley where there's just a part of you that can sense this is not real, right? I can't explain it. And maybe it's just because like I love practical things. Like I don't know if my kids are that aware of that.
That's the big, not to get too serious, this is a great question here from Trench Run Luke that has a lot of nostalgia attached to it. And you and I are probably going to keep talking about some of the big props and designs that we love as kids that carries on to this day. But will the next generations even know what they're missing or care to know? They're going to have their own form of nostalgia. And it's easy for us to sit there and say back in my day, you, me, and Joseph have always tried to push past that. I used to be a crotchety old man in my 20s, 30s, and now I'm only slightly. But as much as I love change, you and I are joking about being on radio. Radio is a dead medium in a lot of ways. It's moved to different spots. Even what we're doing now is got the spirit of radio in it. But so as much as I do myself, like streaming some music or playing my own music, or radio is not what it once was. There is a sense of community that is built around those things. That's why your local morning show guy or your local newscast had some value to it. It was a sense of community, and that kind of stuff is lost. And you just kind of sound like a dinosaur complaining about it.
Right.
But I've seen a lot of posts of, no. I get new, but we are seeing a detachment of people. The loss of connection is important. And sometimes, I'm sure some people have this view of Star Wars, but as me, who's been a casual to general Marvel fan over the years, I'm not taking anyone's love and the meaning away from those films to other people. Please don't misunderstand me. I'd be going against our own ForceCenter ethos here. But I found myself, I like some of those movies, first act, second act, and then there's just a mishmash of a big fight in the third act, right?
Yes.
And that's a general sweeping statement, to be clear. Because I do love, one of my favorite Marvel films. I love the Black Widow film. I'm a really big fan of that film. It has some of that stuff too, but it's the personal, more intimate stuff I love about that film. So I'm less connected. And then what Trench Run Luke's talking about here is, you're not going to be able to go visit a ton of sets from The Mandalorian. It's going to be a studio in San Pedro. But you and I live close. I live even closer to Tython off the 118 freeway, and I pass that a lot. And I always go, Mando. You just feel that connection. It's fun. Yeah. It's there. And I'd love to, I've hiked in that spot. It's like, and I want other people to, I guess they can always go feel it. I don't know. Am I sounding too old, Jen?
No, and I've been struggling with this lately. I've been trying to do some like meme type of things with like practical effects, but I am limited with time and with my own skills, and so I've been using a little bit of like manipulation to make it happen. And I will say, it's like, I can do this faster. I can do the things that I know I can't do practically.
Yep.
And so I'm blending elements of practical things with AI. And I'm like, this is amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love this. I can get my vision across. And I was going to have my dad, I have a thing that I want to do with my dad where I was going to have him narrate a thing. And then my daughter was using CapCut, and where like you can have like a fake voice. It's like, I guess like an AI voice from text. Yeah. And I was like, actually, that kind of might sound funnier. There's kind of like an element of humor about the fact that it's not human. So here I have my dad, Golden Mike winner, broadcaster, great voice.
A traditional newsman. Yeah.
who that could be one part of it. Yeah. Or I could use this AI thing, which kind of might be funnier.
Yeah.
And that was in the moment where I was like, oh shoot, like, I don't know. Like my kids aren't going to know they're not going to know the difference. But they might laugh more at the robot voice. So it's a real struggle. And the train has left the station in terms of like CGI, in terms of AI. Like we have to get over it because it's here. Yeah, it's already here. Yeah. So I think for Star Wars though, specifically, it is baked into the DNA that they use. There are some practical elements. That is just what ILM was founded on, the practical aspect of it. And I think fans appreciate that, and fans like that. Yeah. So to totally go 100% CGI, like I feel like Marvel, for me, it doesn't work a lot, where I just feel like I'm watching a cartoon. Yeah. Sorry. I mean, but some things are great, and there's a lot of great moments to it. Yeah. But I don't want that to happen with Star Wars.
Like I've heard the reasons of why all the main characters, when they're in the Avengers armor, it's completely CG, and all of them make sense because they're like, cool. If we had to put RDJ in a real, Iron Man, we would have no scenes to shoot. He'd be falling over. It'd be like 3PO, years ago, and Anthony Daniels squished inside. So I'm all for it, and there's the word AI is just thrown around, this big general term. I use it for some productivity things. I stand behind it. There was a great clip going around of Ben Affleck speaking forcefully and eloquently about some of the future, some of the trains left the station kind of stuff, but we'll never replace the heart. We never will, and now it's a fight for the heart. I know that's big for Joseph in his life, the fight to continue to be connected to each other's humanity, and that's something I fear in this big conversation. As we take this far beyond Trench Run Luke's question, Jen.
I'm sorry,
but it does. It factors in. It's I've never done the Death Valley. It's all the years I've lived in L.A. I've never done the Death Valley run to see some of the Tatooine locations from Return of the Jedi and stuff, but That stuff means going up to Crescent City or something like the Redwoods to know that Endor exists in some real fashion. It's something that I do fear could be lost completely, but I like it when it's there.
Yeah, I love all the locations in Andor. You can feel it. It makes a difference. It feels very real and grounded, right? But
See,
there's going to be sometimes where you don't where you can't just use a real location.
yeah,
You have to do something. Well,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, and again, it's the lie. This is the BB-8 lie. Like BB-8's practical.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff's computer. Like
Right.
we all fall for it. But you bring up the Andor thing, and you go to look House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, especially by the end. Those dragons weren't real. Turns out, not real. But also most of the armies. Go to Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. None of this. There's no revelation that makes me go, what? I thought all the Dothraki were real in that fight scene. No, but you look at Andor, and it's a case for the humanity. It's a case for the screws and the bricks in the wall, just having something a little more powerful to it that we connect with. So in terms of Star Wars, I'm going to enjoy what we have. And at least, you look, the was the Celebration 2022, right? Where they had the Mando Book of Boba Fett displays.
Oh yeah.
Wonderful. It was surprisingly moving. Joseph and I got the chance to go there on a morning that wasn't as busy, and I had this like, yeah, I like props. Sure. And you get there, and you're spending a lot of time just looking at the fabric, seeing the detail, seeing the care, and that moved me. And so I think we'll still have that. At the very least, we'll have mostly costumes that are real.
We'll have right, exactly. I mean, what's interesting is that when we went to Galaxy's Edge and we went on the Smuggler's Run, the Millennium Falcon ride, and you're walking in through, the waiting area, the level of detail that they have put into replicating Star Wars land, like it is incredible. My kids were in awe. They're like, this looks like it's out of Star Wars. And even I'm like marveling at the walls and all the little, rivets and greeblies and all the things. I'm like, this really does look like it's a working, thing. So there is nothing like that physical experience.
Yeah.
There really isn't. Even if it's replicated by Disneyland. That's what.
Even if it's some tremendously talented Imagineers and story group members. I'm with you. I've only been to Galaxy's Edge once on a rainy day in the height, 2 days before Disney closed for the pandemic. And I wasn't cynical. I was excited. I cannot describe the feeling of turning the corner and seeing the Falcon for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
Knowing what it was, knowing it was built, knowing that wasn't real, knowing that for the most part it was props that John Dykstra figured out how to film in Van Nuys in '76. Tears formed, tear rolled on my face on a rainy day because it was in front of me and tangential. You could feel it. Tactile keyboards. I miss those too.
Oh gosh.
So. Yeah, but luckily, I think Star Wars will always have one foot in the real world, Jed. I hope. I know.
I think so.
Well, there you go. We've answered it as best we can. We went a lot of places. Sorry, Trench Run Luke, if we didn't answer directly, but I also appreciate your question. Same with you, Daniel. Thanks for those who are following us on Blue Sky. We're having a lot of fun over there being just a little more active. There's so many reasons why it's working right now. Don't need to have a think piece on why Blue Sky is taking over. There's a lot of reasons, some political, some social, some just fun. It's been good, and we're probably getting some new people checking in over there as well, so we appreciate you hopping on board. That is it for this week. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod if you'd like. We are on Facebook as well, ForceCenter Podcast. YouTube, if you're here, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You want to hit that because occasionally now we go live just impromptu with the YouTube vertical live option. It's usually behind the scenes hangout with me as I prepare things, and we'll expand that. We are we're unsure if we're going to go live in November. Joseph off shooting this film and the holidays. We'll see, but that is a way to connect with the vertical life. So subscribe, hit that notification bell. Podcast is available in a lot of spots. Just search, you'll find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Still time to get a ForceCenter shirt for the holidays for someone you care about. Or you can go shop our fourth wall shop, links below on YouTube. Patreon.com/ForceCenter so you can support us directly. Follow me at Napzok or at KedNapzok.bsky.social. I still think the handles are clunky, but having a lot of fun over there. Jen, where can they find and follow you and your wonderful art pieces you're creating there?
My ridiculous memes you can find on Instagram at Jennifer Landa, Blue Sky at Jennifer Landa, or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There it is. All right. Thanks for your questions, all. We'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.